The Senate will come to order. All members, guests, and staff would rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brief recess.
Brief recess. In order. Papers from the House.
Several petitions come from the House under the suspension of Joint Rule 12 referred to their respective committees.
Question comes on suspension of Joint Rule 12. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the rule is suspended. The petitions will be referred to their respective committees. Several resolutions have been presented, which the clerk will read.
By Mr. Brady, resolutions congratulating Peter Hunt on his elevation to the rank of Eagle Scout. By Ms. Lovely, resolutions congratulating St. John the Baptist Parish on the occasion of its 150th anniversary. By Ms. Lovely, resolutions congratulating Brandon C. Reed on his elevation to the rank of Eagle Scout. And by Ms. Lovely, resolutions congratulating John C. Hodges on his elevation to the rank of Eagle Scout.
Question now comes on adoption of the resolutions. All those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are adopted. If there is no objection, on page 3 of calendar, item 27 in the notice section of the calendar will be considered forthwith. Is there an objection? The chair hears none. Third reading of the bill.
An act validating the actions taken at the 2020 biennial state election held in the city known as the town of Randolph, Senate number 493. Its title having been changed by the Committee on Bills in third reading.
The bill has been read a third time. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed to be engrossed. There is no objection. On page 3, calendar item 27 in the notice section of the calendar will be considered forthwith. Is there an objection? The chair hears none. Third reading of the bill.
An act authorizing the town of Berlin to continue the employment of Paul Kenneth Clark, printed in House number 92.
The bill has been read a third time. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed to be engrossed. The Senate will be in a brief recess. Senate will come to order. Is there any objection to proceeding with orders of the day? The chair hears none. On page 1, calendar item 18, the Senate bill financing a program for improvements to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and providing relief to employers and workers in the Commonwealth, Senate 2467. The question comes on ordering the bill to a third reading. Several amendments have been filed which will be considered at this time. Yeah. The senator from Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. Madam President, now pending before the Senate is a bill that contains a number of extensions for actions that have been taken with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. Madam President, this particular piece of legislation covers a wide range of subjects and also has attached to it a fair amount of urgency as we seek to ensure continuity in the transition period as we hopefully put the COVID-19 pandemic behind us. As a result, Madam President, these extensions are for various periods of time and for various subjects. And Madam President, before we consider the several amendments, I'm hoping that the distinguished chair of the Committee on Ways and Means or another member of the committee or another member of the Senate would be able to provide us with an explanation in the form of an overview of the many different elements of this bill so that we can consider to move on to expeditiously consider them. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from First Bristol and Plymouth, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. As we all know, The governor's state of emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic is coming to an end next week. Over the course of the pandemic, the legislature has adopted countless policies in response to the pandemic to help ease the burdens of our residents, healthcare systems, and businesses. The governor has also issued many executive orders and public health orders through his emergency powers. Many of these policies are tied to the end of the state of emergency and will expire if additional action is not taken. After receiving public testimony over the past week, the bill before us today seeks to temporarily extend many of those existing policies. This temporary extension will allow a broader debate on these issues to occur throughout the remainder of the session and give us the opportunity to examine these policies to determine the best fit with our evolving needs as this pandemic winds down. This bill is just the first step in that conversation. I will add to the gentleman from Gloucester, the minority leader, that none of our recommended extensions are creating any new provisions or any new policies. These are existing provisions and policies that have been amended and adopted and debated by this body or issued by the governor. And as recently as last evening, the Board of Health, Department of Public Health Commission actually extended some of the provisions that we were contemplating extending in this act. So it is an opportunity temporarily for these provisions to continue so that we have more time in order to determine the suitability of even extending them further. Thank you, Madam President.
Brief recess. Senate will come to order. The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
President, I thank the gentleman for his explanation, and I thank not only the senator but the members of the committee and the staff for putting together this list of items for our consideration. And I do want to call attention to and express appreciation for the fact that no new policy is being made as a result of the legislation that's contained in this particular bill. Madam President, I also want to call attention to the importance of a great number of measures that are contained in this bill, particularly, Madam President, those that are intended to help our restaurants who are struggling to recover from the adverse impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are very important provisions that are contained in the bill as written presently to be able to allow for the extension of outdoor dining, for instance, something that we in Minority ARC have also filed a standalone piece of legislation relative to, but until we fully digest that, it's important that we have this extension. In addition, Madam President, there is contained in the bill as written an extension on the ability to deliver alcoholic beverages or to serve them on a takeout basis by restaurants for a limited period of time, which is something that's also very significant for restaurants in our Commonwealth. These are tools that have been used to help them survive. And, Madam President, as we continue to work through a very promising economic recovery post-COVID-19 pandemic, these are tools that make sense to continue in existence for some period of time. Similarly, Madam President, there are also provisions regarding local government that are included in this particular bill, most notably provisions authorizing the continued remote participation in meetings of local boards so that everyone can be able to continue to be included in the process of democracy at the local level. And, Madam President, there are also other items that I hope that we will be discussing. One relative to the remote notarization of documents, which I know is something that you're quite familiar with, and also, Madam President, measures that pertain to housing and evictions that, Madam President, are significant. And again, I hope that we will have some discussion about those things. But, Madam President, in general, this is a bill that helps to facilitate a transition. But in doing that, it presents some extensions so that we can consider further a great number of things that have come into our landscape or onto our landscape as a result of the pandemic which deserve further consideration as to whether they should remain as part of that permanent landscape. And Madam President, I know that the members of this chamber will work diligently on those considerations as we move forward. But again, taking action today allows us to be able to make that transition, to have that consideration, to have a full and fair discussion of these issues without the pressure that would be presented by the potential expiration of these items in just a very short period of time, as was described by the distinguished chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. So, Madam President, I look forward to the consideration of the several amendments. I do hope that we will find a path forward to be able to extend a number of these things because of their significance, and I'm confident that we can do that in a collaborative way that also respects the time constraint that we face. Thank you, Madam President.
Amendments 1 and 2 will just temporarily be held. Amendment number 3, Senator Brady has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 3 by Mr. Brady, public retiree work waiver extension.
He's going to speak. Senator Brady. Oh, Senator Brady.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you hear me? Thank you, Madam President. Through you to the members, I want to thank Madam President. I want to thank the Chairman of Ways and Means and all our colleagues for all their diligent and hard work on this important piece of legislation. It, as was mentioned, it helps out restaurants that have suffered through this pandemic. It helps out many other entities and municipalities. And one other thing we want to help is the retirees. A lot of retirees have gone back to help out different entities and working part-time. And this amendment that I filed, it's a public retiree work waiver extension. And I know there's a further amendment that we support regarding this. This amendment would extend the sunset date of June 15th to December to allow public retirees to work past the 960 hours they are allowed. To assist with the state and municipal response to the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of public retirees have been called back into public service over the past 14 months. In response to the need of this supplement for the workforce with highly qualified and experienced temporary workers, the legislature waived both the hourly and earnings restrictions placed on public retirees working in public service here in Massachusetts. The waiver was subsequently extended into calendar year 2021. However, the extension for only so long in the Commonwealth state of emergency remained in effect. So as you know, Governor Baker has announced he will be lifting as of June 15th, 2021. And while the state of emergency may no longer be necessary, the pandemic and demands placed on government are likely to continue for the foreseeable future. This fact necessitates the need for many public retirees to continue post-retirement public service employment. Many retirees continue to help supplement the full-time workforce in positions critical to the government's response to COVID-19. In order to facilitate a smooth and orderly transition, I'm asking that the retiree work waiver be extended through December. Additionally, the extension will help avoid the confusion that would indefinitely exist if retirees, public employees in the retirement system are forced to track and calculate hours and earnings in a split fashion for the remainder of the year. A uniform end date for the waiver that is based on the calendar year avoids confusion and any accidental violation of the normal retiree work limits. So I ask the body to support this, and I thank you for, again, all your work on this matter. Thank you, Madam President.
On adoption of the amendment, all those in favor say aye, opposed no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Amendment number 4, the senator from Norfolk, Bristol, and Middlesex, Ms. Roush, has filed an amendment for which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 4 by Ms. Roush, fostering equal remote access for all town meetings.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it, the amendment is not adopted. The senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, amendment number 5 is on hold. The senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, amendment 6, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 6 by Mr. Tarr, notification by governor.
The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. And Madam President, for the purpose of economy, I would choose to speak presently to the next 2 amendments, which both relate to the notification provisions that are contained in the bill as written by the Committee on Ways and Means. And Madam President, certainly having notification from the executive branch as to when an emergency order is going to expire is an admirable thing and something that, Madam President, we should pursue. However, as presently written, this particular provision would require 45 days notice of when a COVID-19 related emergency is going to end. Now, Madam President, that is not practical if the new emergency is to last for a short period of time. To wit, if we were to have a 30-day emergency, it would not be possible to issue 45 days notice of its termination. And so, Madam President, while I admire the work and appreciate the work that's been done by the Committee on Ways and Means to be able to structure this so that we get notice, Madam President, it does not seem that, as written, this is a practical measure. And, Madam President, it could have the unintended consequence of actually requiring a state of emergency to last for 45 days, if for no other reason than so the appropriate notice under this provision could be given. I don't think that's the intent, and Madam President, I don't think that we should adopt an amendment that would drive a public health emergency or any other emergency order issued by the Governor or the Secretary of Health and Human Services to last any longer than it needs to, merely so that it would have to provide appropriate notice of 45 days. Madam President, it seems to me that public health orders and emergency orders should be issued for the appropriate time that's necessary to respond to the emergency. And we should not add as a consideration an extension of those orders to be able to provide notice that they're going to terminate. Madam President, this does not seem logical, and it does seem to be something that could have very significant unintended consequences. And as a result, I hope that the next two amendments are adopted. Thank you, Madam President.
So amendment number 6, our question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 7, the question comes on adoption of...
The same senator.
The same senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 7 by Mr. Tarr, notification by the Commissioner of Public Health.
Question comes on adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The same senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment number 8, for which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 8 by Mr. Tarr, evictions.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The senator from Essex and Middlesex is very busy. Mr. Tarr has filed another amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 9 by Mr. Tarr, ballots subject to this act.
Senator from Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, one of the tools that's used in our Commonwealth to maintain the integrity of elections are random audits. And in fact, Madam President, those audits were conducted following the last statewide election, and they're done routinely. As we extend the period for the usage of things such as mail-in voting and other kinds of mechanisms that are included in this bill, it makes good sense to be able to allow for those audits to continue to make sure that as we conduct something extraordinary with regard to these procedures, that we also use something ordinary that has been time-tested in the form of audits so that we can continue to understand and make sure that the process that's being used has integrity and transparency, just as we have done in presidential elections at the very least for quite some time. So, Madam President, I hope the amendment is adopted.
Question comes to adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The amendment, Senator from Norfolk and Plymouth, Mr. Keenan, has filed an amendment. The clerk will read.
Amendment number 10 by Mr. Keenan, residential concerns.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The same...
Brief recess.
Brief recess. And it will be in order. For the edification of the members, the following amendments have been withdrawn. Amendments 12, 13, 21, and 15. Proceeding with the amendments, I don't know if I called him. The senator from Norfolk and Plymouth, Mr. Keenan, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 11 by Mr. Keenan, collaborative drug therapy management optimization.
Question comes up, Senator from Essex, Mr.
I thank you, Madam President. I know that you're very eager to press forward and you've got your foot on the accelerator, but Madam President, I'm hoping that we can get a little bit more information about this particular amendment from its very thoughtful sponsor, who I know entered the chamber with a few sheets of paper in his hand, and I am so very eager, Madam President, to hear what those sheets of paper contain.
Keeping my eye on you, Senator. Thank you. The senator from Norfolk and Plymouth, Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you, I appreciate the question from the gentleman from my favorite North Shore community, Gloucester. This amendment has to do with collaborative drug therapy management optimization, and presently, under Chapter 112 of the General Laws, Section 24B and a half, there has to be on-site supervision by attending physician and ambulatory care clinics when there is a collaborative drug therapy management optimization program in place. During the pandemic, some providers transitioned to remote to provide these services, consultation and supervision. They did it via video and audio and secure messaging. And providers consulted with the Board of Registration of Pharmacy regarding this remote supervision and attended and amended its policies. They amended their policies to reflect the availability of and the protocol for remote supervision, including the ability of clinical pharmacists to reach attending physicians immediately by phone, video, or messaging during the public health emergency. Following the transition to this remote collaborative drug therapy management optimization program, clinical pharmacists have reported no delays in reaching or contacting supervising physicians. Also, there have been no reports of either adverse events, safety concerns from clinicians, patients, staff, or clinical pharmacists. So what this program does is it helps patients, especially elderly and disabled ones who have difficulty traveling with these diseases like diabetes and complex medications regimens. So whether the physician supervision is on-site or remote, it's been shown to be equivalent in quality. And allowing this program to continue will increase the availability of these services, ultimately avoiding unnecessary ED visits, healthcare costs, and out-of-pocket expenses for patients. This amendment would amend the general laws to allow the requirement of on-site to be suspended through April 1st of 2022. It is a good program, and it has shown to be effective, and I respectfully ask that this amendment be acted on favorably. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. The question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. The same senator from Norfolk and Plymouth has filed an amendment 14, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 14 by Mr. Keenan, removing determination of need for CT scans to improve access.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment is not adopted. The same senator from Norfolk and Plymouth has filed an amendment, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 16 by Mr. Keenan, meetings of public bodies.
Senator from Norfolk and Plymouth, Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Madam President. In summary, this amendment would require members of public bodies to meet in person absent an advance notice of illness, physical incapacity, or unforeseen circumstance. We have, within our communities, had public bodies meet remotely during the course of this pandemic, and it has worked quite well. It has allowed them to be engaged, and it has also allowed the public to be engaged in some ways to a larger extent than what they had been pre-pandemic. And we know, because of the pandemic, that it's important to prioritize public health. So having the remote public meetings of these public bodies serve the purpose of that public health. But we all know, and I think we all have to acknowledge, especially all of us who are in this business, that we lose something vital when we meet remotely. We lose that person-to-person contact that is so essential at all levels of government, and is particularly essential at the level of local government where the public bodies carry on the work of the municipalities. Those who were appointed, elected to positions, took those positions or ran for those positions knowing that they had an obligation to meet in person when safe to do so. Fortunately, here in Massachusetts, our vaccination story has been a story of success. And many, many here in Massachusetts are vaccinated. And it seems to me that the timing is right for public officials in the Commonwealth to resume meeting in person. But this amendment, while it stresses the need and calls for those meetings to occur in a public place, in a public forum, and in person, it also provides still for the public to participate remotely. But the amendment offers a commonsensical exceptions or exemptions for members of a public body who can't make it to a meeting because of being physically incapacitated, because of physical illness, or perhaps they're in quarantine because of COVID exposure, or they are being treated for COVID. And it also has an exemption for unforeseen circumstances. But it requires notice from the member of the public body to the public body that they will not be present for one of those reasons. So it stresses that it's time for the public bodies to get back and meet in person, but it allows for the public health of all, and particularly the health of those members who may not be able to attend for a health reason. So, Madam President, I think this is timely, I think it is necessary, and I think it is not only protective of the public health, but as importantly, it promotes the public good through in-person public involvement by board members. Thank you.
Comes an adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 17 is on hold for the edification of the members. Amendment number 28 has been withdrawn. The amendment number 18, the senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 18 by Mr. Tarr, rental assistance application.
The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. Madam President, this is a very simple amendment that would reduce the time that's contained in the bill for the extension of some of the eviction provisions that are currently contained in the proposal from the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. And, Madam President, we are certainly sympathetic to the need to continue to prevent evictions for a variety of reasons. But, Madam President, we filed this amendment to also call attention for the need to understand the concerns of those who are landlords who depend on rental payments to be able to meet their expenses as well. And, Madam President, for some who depend on those rental payments for income as well as meeting the expenses of providing housing. And so, Madam President, I would encourage us all to consider not only those, Madam President, who are tenants, but also those who are providing housing. And, Madam President, this morning I had a very productive conversation with the Committee on Ways and Means staff as well as the chair about continuing to look at this issue and to think about this issue. And as a result of that conversation, Madam President, I am going to ask to withdraw the amendment with the hope that we will continue to discuss, again, the needs of both tenants and those who provide housing. So, Madam President, I request unanimous consent to withdraw the pending amendment.
Amendment requests unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment. No objection. The amendment is withdrawn. The amendment number 18, the same, no,
19.
that was
19.
Number 19, the senator from 1st Hampton and Hampshire, Mr. Lesser, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 19 by Mr. Lesser, remote participation for open town meetings.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The senator from 2nd Suffolk, Ms. Chang Diaz, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 20 by Ms. Chang Diaz, vaccine equity benchmarks.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 22 is on hold. Number 23, the senator from Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 23 by Mr. Tarr, temporary extended work hours for minors.
The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
Madam President, and through to the members. Madam President, this very straightforward amendment would just expedite the time in which those who are minors are able to work. There are currently provisions in Massachusetts law relative to allowing that employment for those, Madam President, who generally are seeking to work in occupations as summer jobs so that they can earn money. And so, Madam President, the reason that we filed this amendment is because of the desperate shortage in our workforce that's being reported by employers all across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And Madam President, this is one way, one very small way that we could be able to assist with that by allowing young folks who are seeking to have a summer job to be able to get to that job more quickly. Madam President, it's a very straightforward proposal that responds to the needs of both those who would be seeking the jobs and those who, again, reporting a desperate need for labor so that they can capture the economic opportunities that are presented by the reopening of the economy following the pandemic. Madam President, this amendment speaks for itself, and I hope the amendment is adopted.
Thank you. The question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 24 is on hold. Amendment number 25, Senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 25 by Mr. Tarr, notification by the governor.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The same senator has filed amendment number 26, Senator from Essex and Middlesex. Mr. Tarr has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 26 by Mr. Tarr, notification by DPH Commissioner.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendments 27 and 29 are on hold. Amendment number 30, the senator from Plymouth and Barnstable, Ms. Moran, has filed an amendment which the clerk will hold.
Amendment number 30 by Ms. Moran, notice of executive action related to a public health emergency.
Brief recess.
Brief recess. Senate will be in order. Returning to amendment number 30, the question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted.
Okay, for the edification of the members, 1 and 33 are withdrawn.
For the attestation of the members, amendments number 32,
31.
30, 31 and
33.
31 and 33 have been withdrawn. Amendment number 32, the senator from Berkshire, Hampshire, Franklin, and Hampden, Mr. Hines, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 32 by Mr. Hines, permit extensions.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not approved. Amendment number 34 is on hold. Amendment number 36, the senator from 1st Suffolk, Mr. Collins, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 36 by Mr. Collins, outdoor drinking safeguards.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment
Is not adopted.
is not adopted.
Brief recess.
Brief recess. The senator from 2nd Middlesex, Ms. Jalen, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 35 by Ms. Jalen, extending CDC moratorium protections.
The senator from 2nd Middlesex, Ms. Jalen.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to speak on both Amendment 35 and 39 because they're related. I would just like to report to everyone that Chair Keenan and I met with the trial court last week, and we heard that what they believe the eviction diversion initiative has been very successful. But its success depends not only on available funds, which are so important, but on the processes provided by Chapter 257. In particular, Chapter 257 of last year's acts, which was initiated by the Senate, Number one, requires landlords to serve uniform notices to quit that include a description of tenants' rights and resources. And second, requires courts to grant continuances during the eviction process if tenants or landlords have applied for rental assistance and the application is pending. I am extremely happy and grateful that the Ways and Means proposal includes extensions of those protections because they're so important. I appreciated the minority leader's comments about responding to the needs of landlords as well as tenants, and I want to remind members that it is often or even usually in a landlord's interest to retain a tenant if they can get a payment of back rent. And that's what happens when a tenant and or landlord file a successful application for raft payments. And that might take time, and the court process needs to accommodate that. The landlord receives a significant back rent payment and doesn't have to get a new tenant, and the tenant has housing stability and avoids homelessness. However, so despite those very important extensions, the CDC eviction moratorium expires at the end of June. Right now, a third of the cases being heard in district court have executions being stayed by the moratorium. When it expires, thousands of cases can move to execution, and all of those families could be forced out of their homes. Just because the governor says the emergency is over on Tuesday doesn't mean people are back to work or have been able to catch up on rent payments. We need to extend the protections of the CDC moratorium until we are able to come up with permanent solutions for those families, which Amendment 35 would do. Our experience during the past few months has exposed unanticipated problems in implementing the protections of 257, and Amendment 39 would address those problems. However, I understand that this bill is limited to quickly extending existing state provisions, and for that reason, I respectfully ask to withdraw Amendments 35 and 39.
The senator from 2nd Middlesex asks unanimous consent to withdraw amendments number 35 and 39. Hearing no objections, the amendments are withdrawn. The senator from Plymouth and Barnstable, Senator Moran, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 37 by Ms. Moran, support for restaurant recovery.
From Plymouth and Barnstable, Senator Moran.
Brief recess.
Brief recess. The chair recognizes the senator from Plymouth and Barnstable, Senator Moran.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. I'm speaking as a co-sponsor on Amendment 24. For 3 months, most of their businesses were forced to close their doors. Us remained open at a very limited capacity to provide emergency shelter to our frontline workers. When they were allowed to reopen, providers suddenly faced increased costs to keep their businesses open and to do so safely. Unfortunately, because child care providers are often underpaid and undervalued, many of some mothers who had to leave hybrid schooling for their own children, they couldn't hold on and were forced to close. Today, more than 1 in 10 child care providers have not reopened. And for every child care provider that closed, many families lost their child care and were left with fewer options. This crisis is not over for child care providers, and many families are still without care. The big reason why my district is short workers. Losing child care is hugely consequential for a family. Most families can't afford a quick replacement. Child care closure makes it that much harder to find a new place to trust their children. Without an alternative, child socialization education is disrupted, and parents are suddenly facing the stress of managing full-time child care with work. Many patients, more often mothers, may not be able to return to work at all. With limited or no income, these parents are suddenly looking at stacked up rent, mortgage, food, and other necessities, and first time are seeking aid themselves in many cases. Fortunately, CARES Act unemployment insurance is available to families who need time to work, and this help continues as the child care sector enters a recovery period. Approving this amendment makes acknowledging the significant impact that the COVID-19 had on child care and how foundational child care is to supporting workers in the Commonwealth. Just begin a period of recovery, and we must govern that way. Otherwise, we risk prolonging this crisis and making recovery much harder for our constituents, particularly women, who must still fight for parity on many levels. Thank you. I ask with Senator Jalen that the membership vote in favor of Amendment 24.
Amendment 37.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 38, the senator from First Suffolk, Mr. Collins, has filed an amendment. The clerk will read.
Amendment number 38 by Mr. Collins, reasonable to-go limitations.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The senator from 3rd Essex, Mr. Creighton, has filed an amendment. The clerk will read.
Amendment number 40 by Mr. Creighton, virtual reverse mortgage extension.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. The amendment number 41, the senator from 2nd Plymouth and Bristol, Mr. Brady, has filed an amendment. The clerk will read.
Amendment number 41 by Mr. Brady, proof of rental assistance.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Amendment number 42, the senator from First Hampton and Hampshire, Mr. Lesser, has filed an amendment. The clerk will read.
Amendment number 42 by Mr. Lesser, temporary extension of delivery fee caps.
Question.
Recess?
Does he want to speak?
Maybe, yeah.
He said go through that.
Senate will, question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment is not adopted. Senate will be in a brief recess. Will be in order. The senator from 2nd Plymouth and Middlesex, Mr. Bristol, Mr. Brady.
President, through you to the members, going back to Amendment 41, I know that there's a section, and we've done so much great, incredible work on this whole piece of legislation today. I thank all the participants. But there's a section about extending the eviction protection that requires courts to grant a continuance of the eviction based solely on non-payment. The non-payment was due to COVID-19 related financial hardship, and the defendant has a pending application for rental assistance. And we certainly want to help the tenants out, but as was mentioned from some of our colleagues today, we want to help out the landlords too, because landlords and tenants have both been struggling through this pandemic, and landlords really want their tenants to be able to get help. But when the tenants are not paying their rent and have not been forthcoming about their application for assistance, the landlords suffer, and you don't want tenants to go out into the street either. So that's why I filed this amendment, but I know that we are continuing to work with all our colleagues to get this straightened out as we move forward. I know how important this legislation we're doing today is important to get put forth today. So I know we're going to have continued discussion on this. So I was going to ask to withdraw Amendment 41 because I know we're continuing this discussion. I ask for unanimous consent to withdraw Amendment 41.
That no action be taken on amendment number 41, and ask unanimous consent that amendment number 41 be withdrawn. Hearing no objection, amendment number 41 is withdrawn.
Nice job.
Okay.
Brief recess.
What? Brief recess. And Barnstable.
Hang on.
I didn't call the amendment yet, did I?
For you, the member, I rise in support of Amendment 43. This amendment will create a grant program through the Executive Office of Public Security to program to seasonal increases in instances of driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Our communities have been forced to deal with unprecedented events during the pandemic, from increased flexibility in alcohol access during a busy season to the new phenomenon of fight clubs on our beaches. We must be equally creative in supporting the added watchfulness and longer hours demanded of our police officers to keep our communities safe. Our law enforcement officers have bravely and tirelessly risen to the challenge of COVID in a myriad of ways, with the influence of reopening our business at a time we're all being released from various levels of COVID quarantine. It's our duty to provide our officers with all necessary tools to help them in their efforts to protect the public to ensure a smooth and safe reopening of our communities. However, many towns do not have the funds to respond appropriately to this unprecedented increased challenge. This means that communities will be less safe. We must invest in the safety of our communities, and this grant program would make sure that we do. That being said, I hope I can work with my colleagues on this effort in the future, and I ask for unanimous consent to withdraw Amendment 43.
Thank you. The senator from Plymouth and Barnstable asks for unanimous consent to withdraw Amendment number 43. Having no objection, Amendment number 43 is withdrawn. Amendment number 44, the senator from First Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 44 by Mr. Tarr, incentive for displaced workers.
The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President. And Madam President, consistent with remarks that I made earlier in this debate, this amendment was filed to call attention to the fact that we have businesses that are struggling to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, that are trying to take advantage of the new opportunities that are presented by pent-up demand that is now being unleashed, and as well, Madam President, by the opportunity to reopen doors and capture a lot of the economic opportunity that comes with the particular season that we're in. And Madam President, despite that fact and despite that need, we continue to see that there is not the number of entrants into the workforce that are re-entering following the pandemic to be able to support those businesses in that endeavor. And so, Madam President, while we are extending a great many things here to try to achieve continuity and to try to achieve a bridge to the future, part of the bridge to the future has to be to support businesses that are trying to reopen, re-energize, and capture economic opportunity. And that cannot happen, Madam President, if we do not have folks re-entering the workforce. And so this amendment would require the Secretary of Labor and Economic Development, or the Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development, I'm sorry, to develop a plan to see how we can further incent employees to come back into the workforce. And Madam President, we're encouraged by discussions that were had today relative to things that are happening in that Secretariat. My hope is that we'll continue to stay focused on this particular issue and this particular measure. And even if we don't achieve a result today in the form of this amendment or something like it, my hope is that we will not lose focus on the issue of trying to make sure that we bolster the workforce, that we increase the number of folks that are returning to work, and, Madam President, we continue to grow the economy by making sure that we have an adequate workforce. I hope the amendment is adopted.
The question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted.
Brief recess.
Brief recess. Senate is in order. Returning to amendment number 1, the senator from First Essex, Mr. Zoglio, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 1 by Mr. Zoglio, continuing expanded takeout delivery options in response to COVID-19.
The senator from First Essex, Mr. Zoglio. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted.
Go to number 2.
Now, 2. The senator from First Essex, Mr. Zoglio, has filed an amendment the clerk will.
Amendment number 2 by Mr. Zoglio, continuing third-party delivery cost containment for restaurants.
No, keep going.
The question comes on adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment is not adopted.
Now recognize the
The chair recognizes the senator from First Essex, Mr. Zogby.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a brief statement.
Brief statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. Madam President, we know that our restaurants have struggled tremendously during the course of the last year and a half through no fault of their own, having been shut down, having had to rely on delivery services, having not been able to have patrons come in and dine out. And we have made some significant steps in this membership to assist them, but we keep coming back to the issues of cocktails to go and third-party delivery fees without lending enough support. I want to say that I am extremely grateful to my colleagues for including an extension, as was asked by me, many of our colleagues, and restaurants and their workers across the Commonwealth to extending cocktails to go for at least until April. I acknowledge that, I thank you, and I appreciate that those provisions are not going to end on June 15th when the state of emergency is lifted. Thank you. Thank you. At the same time, I am calling on us as a body to recognize how long it is going to take these mom and pop restaurants that still exist, that actually made it through the pandemic, because we know many did not, to recognize how long it is going to take for them to actually enter in to a place of full recovery. They are not fully recovered. They are not going to be fully recovered magically on June 15th or in April of next year. Now, I appreciate the fact that we extended this cocktails to go provision until April. But that is not going to cut it in the long term. So I'm thanking my colleagues for making this extension, for allowing this extension to go through today, and for recognizing that cocktails to go is working. It's adding much needed revenue to the bottom lines of these small mom and pop shops. It's helping to bring in a couple of $1,000s a month to keep people on the payroll, to keep the lights on, to keep the doors open, and to help them get back to a place where they're not just surviving, but to where they're thriving again. But again, folks, we need to look beyond April. This needs to be implemented long-term if we expect these restaurants to fully recover from the damages that were done during the shutdown. And I know that it can be tough to think of our restaurants as struggling right now because we're all out now, right? Or not all out, but many are out. And it seems when we go out and we see people sitting out on the sidewalks and enjoying dinner that they've fully recovered. But that's not what they're telling us. They're telling us that even though people are finally starting to come back out, and even though they have seen increased support regarding patrons actually dining in, that there is a long way to go. We can't be fooled by seeing some people out at restaurants now and thinking everything has been magically restored and it's okay now. It's not. Financially speaking, they are still, many of them, in a very dire situation. Third-party delivery fees. I know we've been beating a dead horse with this conversation. I am deeply disappointed that caps on these third-party delivery services were not part of this package today. Third-party delivery services who were price gouging restaurants in a time when they felt hopeless, had no revenue coming in, were laying off workers, and were shutting their doors forever, are now going to, on June 15th, be able to start price gouging these struggling restaurants again. Because we did not take action on this. That is not okay. And I would add, it's been said many times, well, these restaurants entered into a deal with these third-party delivery companies, and that's just the way that it is, and they can charge whatever they want to charge. Let me tell you something. A lot of these small restaurants had no idea that these third-party delivery services had posted their names up, the name of the restaurant up on their websites. They had no idea that these third-party delivery services were going to start taking business away from them and charging them exorbitant fees to provide services that they were already provided. They didn't enter into contracts with these third-party delivery services. These third-party delivery services found loopholes in the law and took advantage of these restaurants and need to be held accountable. Price gouging, we agreed, Madam President, was not okay during the pandemic, during the state of emergency, and it's not going to be okay on June 15th. So if we recognize that it was not okay during the course of the last year, why would we allow it to begin again on June 15th? Unacceptable. Deeply disappointed that we did not pass those provisions, Madam President. I want to say that I have filed these provisions as standalone bills. I will continue to advocate for our restaurants through the legislative process. These bills will be having committee hearings. We will continue to advocate, but it's extremely unfortunate that we had the opportunity to do this today and that we didn't. I want to end by saying, again, I am extremely grateful for the extension of Cocktails to Go. I think that it is going to do a tremendous service for our struggling restaurants. But I am going to push this membership to extend those provisions and the provisions that we left out through the process moving forward in any way that I can. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from 1st Essex and Middlesex, Mr. Tarr, has filed amendment number 5, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 5 by Mr. Tarr, reverse mortgage video conference extension.
The senator from Essex, Mr. Tarr.
Madam President, one of the provisions that we had enacted with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic was the allowance of having counseling for remote mortgages be able to be conducted by video conferencing. This amendment merely extends that provision to allow video conferencing, and it does it until December 15th of this year. I hope the amendment is adopted.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
Brief recess.
Brief recess. Senate is back in order. The senator from 2nd Middlesex Senator Jalen has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 22 by Ms. Jalen, continuity of care in assisted living residences.
The senator from Middlesex, Senator Jalen.
Thank you, Madam President. This amendment would extend the emergency order, which suspended the restrictions on skilled care and assisted living residences, as those residences were forced to close their doors to outside visitors, including family and paid caregivers. So staff nurses were left to administer insulin, drops, and ointments, and to provide oxygen and wound care. The expiration of the emergency order jeopardizes the continuity of care for those who receive that limited set of services. Therefore, the extension is essential. There is refiled legislation pending, which has widespread support throughout the legislature, and we'll hear the bill next Monday, and we are looking forward to moving that forward. In addition, I would just like to let people know that the administrative order and this amendment allow CNAs, certified nursing assistants, who haven't yet completed their license, they can continue to work, which will help relieve the extreme shortage of staffing across the continuum. I'm happy to let people know, in addition, that Elder Affairs has released online free training for people to begin the process of certification in this field. That's very important. I'd like to commend Elder Affairs for doing that and say that we need to continue to work on developing the workforce for the whole continuum of care. Thank you, Madam President. I hope the amendment is adopted.
Adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Amendments 24 is on hold. Amendment 27, the senator from First Hampton in Hampshire, Mr. Lesser, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 27 by Mr. Lesser, reciprocity for physicians and other health care providers.
Question comes on adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The senator from First Plymouth and Bristol, Mr. Pacheco, has filed an amendment the clerk will read.
Amendment number 29 by Mr. Pacheco, administrative extension.
Question comes on adoption amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted.
Hold on the corrective. Brief recess.
Brief recess. Order. The senator from First Worcester, Ms. Chandler, has filed an amendment the clerk would read.
Amendment number 17 by Ms. Chandler, relative to physicians' assistants.
The senator from First Worcester, Senator Chandler.
Through you. Department of Public Health, March 18th.
Senator from First Worcester, Senator Chandler. Oh, brief recess. The chair recognizes the senator from First Worcester, Ms. Chandler, to offer remarks on amendment number 17.
Madam President, and through you to the membership, I speak today in support of revised amendment number 17, extending the emergency order issued by the Department of Public Health on March 18th, 2020. This emergency order has allowed physician assistants in Massachusetts during the state of emergency to designate additional supervising physicians without filing new paperwork with the state. During the pandemic, because of this order, physician assistants have been able to work within the full scope of their core privileges to accommodate the rapidly changing needs of the Commonwealth's population. This has allowed the 4,000 PAs across the Commonwealth to be flexible and nimble in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, going to where they are needed the most. Specifically at Brigham and Women's Hospital, the hospital was able to rapidly redeploy more than 50 PAs to the front lines of the pandemic to help care for patients. The hospital's PAs cared for patients in the COVID ICU, patients in inpatient COVID floors, pop-up testing centers, pop-up ambulatory respiratory clinics, vaccination clinics, and the emergency department. PAs continue to staff clinics where these services and interventions are taking place. If the emergency order is lifted on June 15th and PAs are no longer able to practice with the flexibility of movement that they have had during the emergency, many of these type clinics will no longer have access to the staff they need. Additionally, in the over 14 months since this executive order has been in place, there has been no reported instances of harm, issue, or negative impacts from this order. PAs have the training, the experience, and the ability to continue to practice without the need to constantly report any changes in their supervising to their supervising physician. Continuing this order will provide an important means for our healthcare system to fill patient care coverage gaps and staffing shortages. Without PAs, many hospitals in the Commonwealth simply do not have the flexibility in staff to continue caring for COVID patients, managing provider burnout post-pandemic, and covering MA, PFMLO caps. As we look to the future, experience with this executive order proves how beneficial this change could be if extended. Ensuring that this order does not expire on June 15th is critical for the promotion of continued access to care, equity for our patients, and to provide ongoing clinical care for both COVID and non-COVID patients. I urge that this body support this amendment today. Thank you.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye, opposed no. The ayes have it and the amendment is adopted. The senator from 2nd Middlesex, Ms. Jalen, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 24 by Ms. Jalen, Child Care and Unemployment Benefits.
Take a brief recess.
Brief recess. The senator from 2nd Middlesex, Ms. Jalen.
Thank you, Madam President, and I would like to speak about Amendment 24. The governor lifted his emergency order suddenly, and people who are receiving or applying for unemployment assistance now, beginning next week, will be required to search for work. But up until now, the administrative regulations provided flexibility on the definition of suitable work. But beginning next week, new applicants and those reapplying as they are required to do, or recertifying as they are required to do, will be asked if they are available for suitable work, and there will be no opportunity to say you have lost your child care or can't find any. This is a serious problem for parents looking for childcare because many childcare centers have closed or reduced their capacity. Without this amendment, caregivers would be faced with a choice. They could leave their children without safe care in order to pursue work, or lose their unemployment benefits in order to care for a child. It's obviously not just parents, but workers who are caregivers for older adults or disabled adults and depend on care so they can go to work. This amendment would require the department to continue benefits for people who cannot find adequate dependent care to return to work. We should understand the dire situation that now exists in this industry, especially in Western Massachusetts, where almost 20% of child care providers have not reopened. It is so disappointing that the administration would force people off unemployment benefits so quickly and without much warning, when our child care industry that was insufficient prior to the pandemic is simply not ready to provide the placements that workers need. As of June 6th, Early Education and Care reported that only 90% of child care providers are open, which is a loss of more than 20,000 placements since before the pandemic, and we don't know how many hours they're offering. More than 1,000 child care providers have not reopened, and nearly 400 have reported that they have permanently closed. Many providers can't operate at full capacity, and there will be grant funds available, but not till July. And that gives more, they can't open next week, and they can't open immediately on July 1st. I want to point out that it is not just parents who will face the dilemma of child care, of care for dependents. Many workers depend on adult day health programs to care for their older relatives while they go to work, while the workers go to work. 45 adult day health programs are currently closed, 23 permanently and 22 temporarily, hoping to open sometime. In addition, there are 27 others that are believed to be at imminent risk of closure. And even before the pandemic, I had 2 adult day health programs in my district close. Of course, there are other caregiving workers who depend on care for adult disabled dependents. We need legislative language to clarify whether workers will be compelled to go back to work without access to adequate dependent care. So I hope the amendment is adopted. Thank you, Madam President.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The senator from First Plymouth and Bristol asks that no action be taken on amendment number 29. The senator from First Plymouth and... Is there an objection? Hearing none. Hearing none. No action is to be taken on amendment number 29. The senator... Brief recess. The gentleman from Bristol and Norfolk asks unanimous consent to withdraw amendment number 29. Is there an objection? Hearing no objection, amendment 29 has been withdrawn. Are we
ready for the corrective?
Yes.
Corrective also.
The senator from...
Hold on.
Brief recess. Senate is in order. The senator from First Bristol and Plymouth, Senator Rodericks, has filed an amendment which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 34 by Mr. Rodericks, corrective amendment.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Question now comes on ordering the bill as amended to a third reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is ordered to a third reading. The question now comes up. Third reading.
An act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency.
The question now comes on passing the bill to engrossed. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is passed to be engrossed. The orders of the day have been completed. This is a memorial. Yes.
Yeah, let me just get, hold on, brief recess.
Brief recess. The senators from 2nd Worcester, Mr. Moore, the senator from 1st Worcester, Ms. Chandler, and the senator from Norfolk, Bristol, and Plymouth, Mr. Timilty, move that when the Senate adjourns today, it do so in memory of Officer Emmanuel Manny Familia. The senator from 2nd Worcester, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Chandler and Senator Timilty and I offer this adjournment in memory of Worcester Police Officer Emmanuel Manny Familia. Officer Familia may have only been with the Worcester Police Department for 5 years, but his impact on that department and the city of Worcester will last forever. Officer Familia was a member of the Doherty Memorial High School class of 2001, attended Quinsigamond Community College, and was pursuing a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Anna Maria College. Officer Familia was both respected and well-liked by his fellow officers. He was a member of the Tactical Patrol Force, the Crisis Intervention Team, a crisis negotiator, and a department recruit officer. Officer Familia was training to become a member of the SWAT team. Prior to becoming a Worcester police officer, Manny, as he is known to friends and family, worked as an officer for the Ocam Police Department, Quinsigamond Community College Police Department, and the Clark University Police Department. He also had a supervising officer, he had also been a supervising officer for the Department of Youth Services, their Youth Apprehension Division. Officer Emmanuel Familia made the ultimate sacrifice when he lost his life trying to save a drowning teenager last week at Green Hill Pond in Worcester. Tragically, neither Officer Familia nor the young victim survived the incident. Officer Familia was a credit to the uniform he wore. He honored his oath to serve and protect until his last breath. A dedicated family man, he leaves behind a wife and two children, his daughter and a son. He will be deeply missed by all who had the pleasure of knowing him. Officer Familia was just laid to rest this morning. Thank you to him and to his family. And thank you for allowing me this moment to recognize him. Thank you, Madam President.
Adoption of the order. Question comes on adoption of the motion. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion prevails. We'll have a moment of silence. The senator. Take a brief recess. Senate will come to order. For edification of the amendment of the members, amendment number 29, offered by the senator from First Plymouth and Bristol, Mr. Pacheco, was withdrawn. Onward. Withdrawn by Senator Pacheco. Thank you. The senator from First Suffolk and Middlesex offers an order which the clerk will read.
Order that when the Senate adjourns today, adjourn to meet again on Monday next at 11 o'clock a.m. and the clerk be directed to dispense with the printing of a calendar.
Question comes on adoption of the order. It's an objection. Chair hears none. The order is adopted.
Yeah, keep going, Madam President.
The senator from Norfolk and Plymouth, Mr. Keenan, moves that the Senate now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned in memory of Emmanuel Familia to meet again on Monday next at 11 a.m.
Bang the gavel, Madam President.